screen. Great. Okay. By the way, we're currently in live, and so if you are wanting to look back at what we literally just talked about 1 minute ago, you can do that. You can access the playlist link that I sent you there, and then there should be a class 2 that's currently live on there, so you can watch that. If you did miss anything, you're like, oh, I missed like 15 minutes. I went on a break or whatever. You went to go and feed your dog or something. You can go back to that last 15 minutes. Okay, let's take attendance. I think that's a good time to do that now. Darcy. Is Darcy here?
Hello.
Hello. Azadeh. I think she was here earlier. Say hello if you're here. Sebastian.
I'm here.
I'm also here.
Awesome. Hello to you both. Gerald.
Hello, I'm here. I just had on mute.
That's okay. Hello. Mida. Is this a new person? I don't think we had them last. Her. Mida? Is Mida here? No? No Mida. What about Mohadese? Are they here? No. Okay. Looks like we're missing a few people. Adam.
Hello.
Hello. Evan. Evan was here. He spoke earlier, I think.
Yes, sir. Right here.
Hello. Catherine. Catherine here.
I'm here.
Hello. Hi. Morpheus.
Yeah, I am here.
Hello. Hannah.
Hello.
Hello. And Kenneth.
Hello.
Hello. And Leandro. Actually, Leandro says this is my schedule. Okay, that's why. Because I was wondering, I'm like, how come he's in today's attendance? But I think Leandro is here. Are you here, Leandro? Seems like you're here. Just type that you're here. I hope you stay. Yes, at the moment, he says. Okay, so any questions regarding last week's assignment? I know the first question was somebody said whether they had to do either or Maya and or Substance. The answer was you have to do 5 materials in Substance and 5 materials in Maya. And yeah, any questions from last week? I mean, it was pretty straightforward, to be honest. Just getting the principles of the PBR is kind of the key thing that was the takeaway from last week. And I hope everyone is set up as well with their Substance and their Maya and stuff like that. Any questions? Anybody? Seems like it's pretty quiet, so I'm assuming no questions. So if you do have a question or anything like that, it would be a good thing to direct message or PM, email me. You can send me a PM here in MS Teams. And yeah, where's the? And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out because it's important that we cover any questions that you've got. You know, I've had multiple students who would come to me at like class 8, and they'd be like, Harold, what happened to this assignment? And I'd be like, that was ages ago. Why are you reaching out to me now? So my suggestion is reach out as soon as possible. And yeah, don't delay, because the clock is ticking when it comes to submission time, as well as if you are say feeling uncomfortable about any part of the program, or you don't know about a certain part of what we discussed during class, say 2 or 3, or whichever class that we had a discussion in, whatever matter. It would be almost too late if you ask later. Like, for example, like I've had students, we're going to talk about normal maps and bump information and stuff like this. And students would ask me like at class 12, like, hey, how do you like hook up a normal map or whatever? I'm like, we discussed this at like class 10. So like, don't have to wait, you guys. You can just quickly DM me. I'll respond, and I'll respond as soon as I can. If I do see it, then I'll respond. If you can't reach me through email, reach me through MS Teams, vice versa. But yeah, feel free to do that, and don't be shy too. So what we will be doing today is we're gonna hop on Maya. So I hope you're all set up there. We won't be touching Substance Painter today. So if you are going to be finishing up your assignments for this week, I suggest you do that later. That way we can move on with the show with our learning today. Nita says, I'm a bit late, but here. Okay, awesome. Hello. PC melting. I mean, you left it as is, right? Like, you didn't change any settings, Morpheus? No. Okay. You can turn down the quality of the render, and I can just show you that quickly. So what you could do is, if you are in your said Maya, you can go to your render settings, and that is this right here. This clapper with the gear, the bottom right. Click on that. And once you have the render settings window up, there's a few tabs right up above here. You have Common, you have Arnold Renderer, System AOV Diagnostics. Go to the Arnold Renderer. Or actually, you know what? You don't have to change that. You can just leave that alone. Go to the Common tab. So you're in the Common tab by default. What you want to do is go to the bottom here, and there should be an image size preset. So it's currently at 540p or HD 540. What you could do is, for me anyway, it's HD 540. I think that scene that you're working with is set at 1080p. You can set it at HD 720. That should be much better for size-wise. So it shouldn't, give your PC trouble. And by the way, this goes for everything else, you guys. If you are going to be rendering and then your computer can't handle the 1080p, I do recommend to always render with 1080p. Reason being is because 1080p today is like the lowest resolution. I would say 720/60 is the lowest resolution. 720p is 60 frames per second. But if you're gonna do like bare minimum of like any picture or anything like this, 1080p is like minimum. some of your guys' phones have higher resolution than 1080p. So that just goes to show that 1080p, it really is like below standard now. And we're working with 4K TVs. 8K is like common now. So 1080p is like tiny. Think about it. Your phone can handle 1080p, no problem. So yeah, work with, if you're having rendering problems, your computer is literally slowing down, you can switch to HD720 and render there. Okay, cool. I'm gonna send everybody a link, and you can access that in the chat. And if you cannot access the chat, please speak up. But I'm gonna be sending a link there. There it is. And that's the course materials folder for today. In there, you should have some files. We're going to start off with the light basic scene. Okay. And what we're going to do today is we're going to learn how to create lights in Maya. Okay. So have your Maya open. Download the light basic scene and open it. For those of you who like to follow along and stuff first, you can do that. We're gonna be chatting for about an hour, so prepare yourself, grab coffee or whatever you use to keep yourself awake. Maybe give yourself a couple of slaps on the cheeks. Light slaps, obviously. Okay, so download that light basic scene. Make sure you are. I have Maya 2022 here, but an older version doesn't really matter. As long as you have the working version. Okay, now intro to lights in Maya. Now, a few years ago, Maya was using something called Mental Ray. And Mental Ray was like native to Autodesk Maya. But ever since, I believe, somewhere like mid 2020s, mid 2010s, between 2010 and 2020, Maya switched to the Arnold renderer. And they bought the Arnold renderer. And what's so awesome about it, I believe, the reason why they purchased that company is because of the simplicity of PBR and the simplicity of the rendering and the shading PBR PBS system, and how quickly you can get realistic effects using Arnold. By the way, I'm gonna go send another link in the chat, and then also open that up. So that one contains the HDRI maps. You know what? Ignore this link. Ignore that link. I'm just gonna transfer these HDR maps to the first link that I sent you there. That way it's all together. There we go. So in that assets folder, you should have the HDRI maps and references and the other Maya files. Okay, so bear with me here for a moment. Now, there's one way, really, to create a light in Arnold, and that is through here. So Arnold, lights, area light. Okay, Arnold lights, area light. So Arnold menu, and then lights, and then expand to the list of lights. Here you have area light. If you make that, you create an area light, you'll get something called an AI area light. And an AI area light is one of the most versatile lights you're ever going to be using when you're lighting your scene. Why? Because it can be small, can be large, it can have different intensities, it can have different color temperatures, which is what we will be talking about later on. But that's how you can create an AI area light. Okay, I made one for you here in the outliner. So you can see here in my screen, I made you an AI area light. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and render with this AI area light. Okay, so to access your camera, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just select the camera here, or you could select it in the group. It's called main cam. You could select your camera here in the viewport, and then go to the panels menu in the viewport, and then select look through selected, like that. Or what you could do is go to panels, just go to panels, and then perspective, okay, and then main cam. So panels menu in the viewport, perspective, and then main cam. Okay, so now you're in this camera. Awesome. This here, particularly the AI area light, that's your lights. Okay, that's what we created earlier. So Arnold lights area light. And if you select the AI area, you'll see that here in the attribute editor, if you don't have the attribute editor, the shortcut is Control Apple. In here, you can control the color, the intensity, and then the exposure. Okay, I want everyone to be clear about this. Do not touch intensity. Okay, do not touch intensity. Do not touch intensity. Okay, why? Because in Maya and in Arnold, for some reason, they had intensity and exposure mixed up. The function of the intensity should be the function of the exposure, and the function of the exposure should be the function of intensity, but they had the terms mixed up. For the basic user, anyway. So when you are changing your light intensities, okay, or your light levels, or light strength, probably the best way to put it, change the exposure and increase the exposure. Just leave intensity to 1. That is constant, okay? And then increase exposure. From time to time, when you get a hang of how the exposure works, then you can mess with the intensity a little bit. But the constant intensity of 1 is what you want. Because exposure really should be at the constant rate of 1 when it comes to photography or film or video editing and stuff like that. The exposure should be at constant 1 all the time, unless you have to change it by like a step. For example, down to 0.9, down to 0.8, or up at 0.1, up at 0.2. Okay, so it'll be 1.1 or 1.2 or 0.9 or 0.8. Okay, and then the exposure, the intensity, okay, which is again mixed up here. Exposure should be increased by whole numbers like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so on and so forth, depending on the size of the light. Okay, so anyway, I just want to I'm spending a lot of time here because I know students would crank the intensity to 20 and then they would go, nothing's happening. Well, leave the intensity to 1, increase the exposure only. Okay, so we're at exposure 5. By default, is at 0. Exposure 5. And we're going to go ahead and just render this, literally. So if you want to go ahead and find your Arnold render view, to access the Arnold render view, you want to go to Arnold menu again, and then select this, Open Arnold render view. It's not the same render view as the one right here. The same looking icon. However, this is the Maya one, okay? And what you want to do instead is use the Arnold one, the one that's supposed to be built in for the plugin, and that's again Arnold Open Render View. Okay, let's go ahead and click that. Okay, So there's really only a couple of important buttons here, aside from there's other buttons, obviously, and they're all pretty much important. But there's like two important ones. The first one being, so once you get the Arnold render view window, it looks like this. First one being is this particular button right here, this play button, okay? And that is what will allow you to render your scene, okay? The second important button is this snapshot right here. What allows you to take a screenshot or a snapshot of your current render after it's finished, okay? To save that snapshot. Okay, and maybe a third, just to make sure that you are rendering the proper camera, always look at this, okay? This particular drop down right here, and that is your main cam. That's gonna be the camera that you're always gonna be rendering. If you're not rendering that current camera, you can choose that camera, perspective or main cam. And if it's not still rendering, by hitting the display button, the start IPR, you can go here. You can go to render, okay, and then update full scene, or the shortcut is Control U, okay. Again, render menu in the Arnold render view, and then update full scene. Really, that's like the two most important buttons, plus like two extra ones just in case things don't work, okay. So there it is, okay. So to go ahead and just start rendering, let's go ahead, hit this play button, top right, start IPR. Okay, and then I'm gonna hit F to frame everything. Cool. So you can see here, it's starting to render immediately, and it looks good, like right away. Okay, very photorealistic. Okay, physically correct. At least it looks like it based on what we're seeing, and it's quick rendering. It doesn't take ages. It used to take ages just to get something like this in mental ray looking like what you're seeing now. It used to take ages, but now it would just take seconds. Okay, so that's how you do that. So you can hit stop or play. Okay, so by hitting play, that means it's an instant preview render. That's what IPR stands for. And you're rendering the scene real time. So you can see here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and make my render view smaller. And then I'm gonna put it here on the side. And then I'm gonna hit play. Okay, so you can see here that if I move this light, okay, real time, and I moved it down here, okay, you can see that the light there is moving with, okay, and it's actually, again, rendering in real time. So you can see it there nudging. Also, if your computer, like for example, you want to allocate more, let's see if we have it here. Let's say you want to go ahead and allocate more threads, or meaning power to, or priority to the renders. What you want to do is you go to render camera, render save UI threads, and then put none. If you want your render to be not as high priority, you can save more threads, like 3 threads, okay? And then you can hit render, and then you can see that my render will be, or my instant preview render will be much quicker in feedback. Okay, there you go. So remember that lights can be quite, well, let's stop this for a moment. Lights can be manipulated in quite a number of ways. And my most favorite way to manipulate any light is to change its size. So you can scale that, obviously. I think you all know how to scale a light. But you could scale that, okay, and then make it thin, okay, and then face it toward a certain direction that you want. So let's change this rotation. I don't really want a rotation. Let's make it thin. Okay, and then do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit render. Right, so you can change, you know, your the scale. Okay, you can change how close it is or how far away it is from your subject. I'm hitting spacebar here to go to the perspective. Okay, you could make it as, you know, you can make it big like this. Okay, and then like that. And then you can change its intensity. Okay, so let's change its intensity by changing the exposure. Remember, we're leaving intensity to 1, changing the exposure. Let's change this to let's say 8. Okay, see what that looks like. Right, so you can see that all of a sudden it's become a different light, from like a spotlight, from like a small point. Now it's become quite a big one. Okay, let's make it even bigger. Let's bring it up. Okay, and then, you know, make it super big. And now it looks kind of like, you know, a big studio light. And then you can also see that if I made it bigger and then pulled it up higher, it seems like it got weaker in strength. So when you are scaling a light, making it bigger, okay, you have to make sure that your exposure strength will also increase based on how you want it to look. So 12 is a little bit crazy, but 10 maybe would work. So 10, let's try 9. It feels like it's still a little too blown up, but 9 feels pretty good. Okay, so you can see that, like, that's the most versatile light there, and that's the AI area light. However, there's other ones that you can actually create in Maya using the Arnold renderer. Okay, and really, there's only specific ones that you can use. But if I were you, I would mess around with the AI area, and because that's the most versatile light that you've got in Maya, like right out of the box. And you can turn it into like a long fluorescent light. You can turn it into a circular one. You can turn it into a long fluorescent one like this, like a beam. You could turn it into a spotlight. All kinds of stuff like that. Right? Changes intensity, so on and so forth. Okay, so make sure you are taking advantage of that. Okay, now let's look at the other lights that we can create in Arnold. So I'm gonna go ahead and minimize this for a second. I'm gonna go to my main cam, and I'm just gonna hide this one here. Okay, the next light that we can make is a directional light. I'm gonna go ahead and unhide this. So pressing H on that previous AI area to hide and unhide that. So I'm gonna hide that. The next one is a directional light. Now it's just a bunch of arrows, really. Why? Because it's a big light source. Works kind of like a sunlight. Okay. And what we're gonna do is show you how to make it for now. You can go to create lights and then directional light. And really, these ones here, okay, some of them anyway, are Arnold compatible. So what is Arnold compatible in the lights list via this way, create light, and then this light list is the directional light, okay, the point light, okay, and the spotlight. Okay, you can use the other ones, but I don't recommend it because the AI area light does the same thing. So directional light, okay, again, point light or spotlight. Okay, and you can see the same 3 there in the list. Okay, so we created a directional light for you. So think about a directional light as like a big sunlight, okay? And you can, again, mimic directional light using the AI area light. However, if the directional light is right here, like, why not just make it, right? And it just looks like a bunch of arrows like this, indicating the light source or the light direction. So you can see, if I go ahead and try to render this now, right? It looks just like a direct sunlight. All right. Okay, that looks like sunset, you know, long shadows, right? There you go. All right, so that's it. Anyway, if you want to mess around with the settings of the directional light, make sure you go to your attribute editor and then go to the Arnold tab right here. Okay, and then left click on the drop down, and in here you can change your exposure. Okay, you can change your angle, you can change your samples. Okay, so let's go ahead and change the exposure to 2, and you can see that boom, it's got much stronger. What is Google doing? Hey Google, stop music. Okay. Okay, and then let's see if we just change the intensity as well. Awesome. So remember, change the exposure. Okay, exposure. You're always changing exposure. Okay, so let's go ahead and hide the directional light. The next light is the point light. Oops, point light. So again, that's under create lights, point light. And let's go ahead and render this and see what this looks like. Now, the point light's kind of cool because it's an omnidirectional light. It works kind of like a single source light bulb. And it's got, multi-direction. Think about candles. Think about any light source like this where it's like omnidirectional. That's kind of like your go-to, the point light. And again, if you go to the Arnold drop down, you can also change that exposure to something even more stronger, like 6, okay, so on and so forth. So again, that's the point light. The next one is the spotlight. And the spotlight works kind of like a theater light, a light that has a cone, okay, a cone angle. And you're able to change that cone angle, okay, by changing the settings here in the cone, in the attribute editor, the cone angle, the penumbra angle, and the drop off. Okay, so play around with those settings and see what happens. So let's go ahead and increase my exposure first to maybe 6. Okay, 7. Okay, so you can see that it's kind of like a theater light. Let's change the cone angle to something smaller. Boom. Right? So very isolated. Okay, so 16. And let's increase it to 109. Right? Much bigger. Or maybe like 85 or something, so it's a bit more obvious. You can see there that it is a light that is pointing, and that's this one right here. Okay, we ended up moving that up here. Okay, and so that is the cone angle. Now let's play around with the penumbra angle. Okay, so it's usually at 0 by default. Okay, and you can see that the line there is very harsh. The transition line is very harsh. If I went to the negatives, let's say -5, it creates a fall off inwards. Okay, inwards towards the center of the light. If I create the penumbra angle +5, it creates a fall off going towards the outside or further away from the center of the light. Okay, so if you want to fall off, you can play with the penumbra angle. Okay. Another interesting one would be the drop off, and the drop off is like an ultimate feather. So let's set this to 5. Right. So what it's doing is it's feathering that penumbra angle. Okay. And then making that transition super duper soft. But you can just play around with that drop off value and see what you could come up with just based on like what you're trying to do and the goal that you're trying to achieve. Okay, so that's it. So that was the spotlight. The next light is something called a mesh light. And the mesh light is solely for Arnold. And to create a mesh light, what you want to do is create a mesh. first. Okay, so in this case, I made a helix for you. This is just a helix geo that you can create via create polygon primitives and helix. Okay, and then I just moved it up and like turned it into an angle, so it looks kind of like a coil or something like this. Now, after you create that geo primitive, select it and go to Arnold, Lights, Mesh Lights. Arnold, Lights, Mesh Lights. Okay. Let's go ahead and apply that on there. So you can see something happen here. Under the helix geo, it parented a light. Okay, under the helix geo, it parented a light. And now, if I go ahead and hit play, nothing happens. Why? Because there's no exposure on the light. So let's select the light. Let's increase the exposure to maybe 5, and then hit play. And you're starting to see that it's taking effect. Okay, so let's try 8, and then hit play. Okay, so now it's become kind of this, whatever shape you create, whatever primitive you're using to create that light, that will be the light. Okay, the light shape. So you can make all kinds of fun shapes. You can make some like really like fun twisty shape, okay, and turn it into a light. What's cool about this is in the attribute editor, okay, there is a light visible feature. And if you turn that on, you can literally see the light being visible, and it'll look like some kind of glowing hot object. Okay, what normally you would see if you do end up staring at like a coil of fluorescent, or like like the coils inside any bulbs, really. And this is kind of what you see. So again, that's the light visible feature. So you can do that. Turn that on, and boom, it looks pretty cool. Okay, the last light I want to go ahead and show you is the HDRI, or they call it the high dynamic range map. Why this is the case? Because this is an environment map. Okay, so in the link that I sent you there, in the assets link that I sent you there should be an HDRI maps folder. So if you go in there, okay, so there's some here. Okay, so there's a couple of JPEGs. So the reason why that's there is because it goes to show that you can use JPEGs as a means of lighting. However, you're not going to get that dynamic range. Why it's called a dynamic range image, excuse me, and why it's a file format of an EXR or HDRI is because imagine a file, okay, a picture file that have multiple exposures. Okay, so meaning you have, let's just say, a 0 layer. Okay, meaning that's your default layer. Okay, like very flat. And then above that, there's an image exactly like it, but a step brighter. And then above that is another image that's a step brighter. And then above that, there's another image that's a step brighter. Okay, and then below the default image, there's one that's slightly darker, a step darker. And then below that, another step darker. And then, below that is another step darker. So it's multiple levels of exposure all packed into one file. And that's why it's called an HDR, or high dynamic range. Why? Because there's a range of darks and lights, okay, within that one file. So what I'm going to do, just for example, I'm going to go ahead and download the Tomoko Studio. Of course, you could mess around with every single one of these. And you can also go to a website called Polyhaven. And then you could try different HDRIs. You can download them if you like. Again, but these are called high dynamic range images. And honestly, they make your assets look so beautiful. Even in Substance Painter, when we were changing the environment light, that was the high dynamic range image that we were using that was built in Substance Painter. But anyway, you can go to your Polyhaven and then download and browse and download a bunch of these HDRIs. And there's like different kinds, outdoor ones, indoor ones, and stuff like that. So you can go ahead and do that. So just for examples though, I'm going to go ahead and download the Tomoko Studio EXR. All right, and save that in my downloads quick. And show you how you can connect that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize my render again. So make sure all the lights are hidden so we got nothing here. Now, to create an HDRI image, it's through here. Go to Arnold, Lights, and then Sky Dome. Arnold, Lights, Sky Dome. Let's go ahead and select that. Okay, so immediately go to your attribute editor. Control A again. And what you want to do is we want to go ahead and hook it up on this color node. Okay, so this node right here, this checkered icon, is a way to indicate that there is no connections in this particular parameter. Okay, so we have a color. You can change the color here, obviously. But if you want to hook up an image, you got to go ahead and click this checkered icon. Okay, so when you click that, you should get a create render node window. From here, we're going to go ahead and choose a file because that's what we want to go ahead and connect with this, the Tomoko Studio that we gone ahead and downloaded. From here, go to the attribute editor and then find this image name path and then select the folder icon to the very right of that empty path. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and navigate to our Tomoko Studio EXR. So right here, hit open. Okay, awesome. Making sure our color space is set to raw. Okay, and then we're going to talk about color space sometime. But for now, color space should be set to raw. Okay, always for any lights or anything like that set to raw. Okay, let's go ahead and check out our render here. So let's find our Arnold render view. Let's make this somewhat bigger and frame this. Hit play. And boom. You know what? Our helix, our light here is not hidden yet, so we have to make sure it's hidden. Okay, let's hide the background. So I'm going to select the background here in my viewport. And I'm just going to press H to hide that. So you can see the HDR there in the background. Okay, because it's being hidden, basically. So there's the HDR right there. Okay, and that is what it looks like when without the box, right? The inverted box. And what you could actually do is select the sky dome, and then you could rotate it, right? Just like how you'd rotate it, you'd rotate the HDR in Substance. You can obviously rotate the HDR in Maya as well. So you can get like the kind of effect that you want, or the kind of color that you want, or kind of lighting setting you want. You could obviously change the exposure as well. But remember that it's the actual map itself that's creating that light source. So you don't necessarily have to play with the exposure, but it would be obviously at your own discretion if you'd like to do that. All right, so there it is. So that's your basic light list. And honestly, you guys, all these lights that I literally just showed you will be you probably won't end up using a lot of them because it's just, again, a case-by-case scenario. Most of the time, you're going to be using the AI area light. You're going to be using the sky dome. And maybe you might end up using the point light. Okay. But otherwise, the other ones, like the helix, the spots, as well as the directional light, those are kind of situational. So unless you have like a sunny scene or something like this, or like one big light source or something like that to fill a certain area, then you might not end up using the directional light. But again, you can use the AI area to achieve the same effect. Just make it super huge, and then change the intensity. So with that being said, are there any questions about this kind of portion of our talk and how to create lights in Arnold, and maybe how to render using the Arnold render view and stuff like that? Anybody? Okay. So it seems like so far so good. All right, so let's go back to our chat here just for a moment. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about light types and just the basics of light. And you need this kind of like just talk, I guess, before you dive into creating anything. Okay, you now know technically how to create lights in Maya. Now I'm gonna tell you how to use it. Okay, and just kind of look at the creative side of creating those lights and the reason why you are gonna be making them in the first place. I know that a lot of you guys are probably not gonna be wanting to be a lighter, but maybe you want to be a compositor someday, you know, or somebody who is dealing with shots, and shots meaning film shots, movie shots, video game shots, whatever it may be. You need an understanding of how and why these people are making lights. Why are they creating them the way that they create them? It's not just simply to fill in shadows, but there's a purpose to a lot of the light placements and the lighting that they do. Same thing with like movies and films and stuff like that. There's a reason why they put those lights there. It might appear like it's like some fake lighting. Like, I don't, sometimes for me is like if I see a shot and I would go, that shot or that lighting setup was not consistent with the one that literally followed, because they're filling in lights, you know, to cover shadow, to get more, you know, effect, let's just say, on the emphasis in the shot, by adding more light to the face, or like shining a light towards the eye, you know, things like this. You know, again, reason for lighting in film and in video games and whatever else. But we're gonna talk about sort of the creative process of this. So let's start the slideshow here. And first we got to deal with the color temperature. And the color temperature is called the Kelvin scale. And it's really made up of just 3 blocks. There is the warm side, the cool side, and then there's the neutral, daylight, white light, right? And so you can wiki it if you like, but it looks just like this. And again, the red side, which is like the hot side, warm side. The middle would be kind of like the daylight, and then to the right would be the cool blue color. Okay, so at around like 6,000 to 7,000 range, that's your daylight. Around 1,000 to maybe around 3,000, 4,000, that's your kind of reddish, orangey, warm light. And then past 7,000 and like way above, you're dealing with your blue, cooler light temperatures. Okay, so here's an example of what those color temperature values may represent based on our light sources. You'll notice that, well, you know what, this is not true, but commonly before anyway, a lot of the indoor lights are warmer, and the cooler lights are outdoor lights. However, it's not true nowadays. We create like, you know, blue lights for indoor anyway, as well. We create fluorescent, you know, daylight for the indoor to keep us awake or whatever. But yeah, these are the ranges of temperatures. So let's just say if you want to aim for like a candlelight, then now you're looking at around like 1800 to 2000, right? If you're looking for a certain outdoor temperature like sunrise or sunset, at 32 to 3500 would be probably fitting. So it just depends, right, on the color temperature. And the color temperature, you'll be able to tell what that light source is. So if I showed you an image, for example, of like a candle, without even showing a candle, it'll be like an indirect light source, and then clearly in the back you'll see some kind of like glowing directional light. You're gonna be like, oh, that's possibly a candle, right? Just because of what it looks like, the color that it illuminates, the intensity, the direction, right? You're thinking about these factors, in the back of your mind, because you've seen it already many times, right? And your brain would immediately go, oh, that's a candlelight, or that's a light source from a possible lamp, or something like this. Just depends on like the behaviors and the observations that you see on what that light source is doing. Anyway, color temperatures, again, you can have a look at what color temperature is perfect for the kind of lighting scenario you're trying to mimic. So here it is. So around like 4,000 to 4,000, 5,000, you're looking at around like natural white light. We could kind of indicate them as like dirty white light or something like this, right? Just a bit more kind of, it's got a tinge of yellow, but not really. It's got that like fading fluorescent color. But that's our natural white light, and so that's something to also keep in mind. So based on what we've been talking about there, we can categorize the scale and scenarios really based on the these two categories, and that's the outdoor lighting and the indoor lighting. A lot of the times you're going to be lighting indoors, but there would be some instances where you are, say, creating a game level or something like that, where you do have to create like an outdoor light source, like the sun, the moon. Really, that's it. That's any natural lighting for the outdoor anyway. Would be from those two sources. So outdoor light, sun or the moon, like so, right? It just varies on the color temperature as well as the light angle. So if you're looking at this, you're probably thinking, what time of the day do you guys think this would be? Anybody?
Morning.
Yeah.
Early morning.
Yeah, for sure. Early morning or just before going to the evening, right? So there's a reason why. So at this angle, your brain will tell you immediately like, oh, it's sunset, or like, oh, it's gonna be sunrise or whatever, right? Now sunset, sometimes in certain areas of the world, it's a little bit more orangey. Less cooler in darker areas, or in areas like up here in the north, where our sunlight is not quite as bright as the ones that compared to like anybody who's sort of near the equator. Our lights are a little bit more cooler. Okay, even if they do have that yellow kind of orangey color to it, it's cooler, meaning it's got more blue compared to, again, ones that are closer to the equator. Okay, so if I show you this time of day, what would you probably say time is for this, based on light direction, shadow angle, color temperature? That's right, midday, right? So it just depends on what season we're in, I guess, but let's just say summer, right? So this is probably around 10:30, right? Or maybe nowadays, I don't know, this would probably be like super late, like 11:30 or 12 even. And then we reach peak at like maybe about noon, right? So same idea goes with this, right? You're depicting the time of day based on the angle of the light source, the shadow angle, the temperature, and just like the overall look. Just look at it, be like, yep, that's sunset or that's sunrise. Could easily be sunset though, since the waves do come in most of the time anyway when I'm around. Might be just coincidence, but anyway, the tide does come in later on in the day, so maybe it is sunset. This one here is probably midday, somewhere in the desert, maybe Texas, I don't know, New Zealand, not sure. But anyway, it's that big cloud there that's in the way. Kind of tells you that there's this big, looming cloud hovering, somewhere there above where this person's taking the photograph, and that light source is beaming right down. So it's possible that this is kind of like midday, possibly noon or past noon. And also the color temperature, very white, right? And usually that's the color temperature for about noonish. And this is just past the time when the light literally sinks below the horizon line, and you're gonna get this kind of like white outline just beyond the clouds, beyond the mountains, I mean. And then you get a dark top blue gradient, okay, right in between the horizon line and kind of way above you. All right, and then now this is something a little bit different because there's no harsh shadows. Neutral lighting, meaning daylight lighting. And then everything is soft, like everything's soft looking. Now this is something called an overcast. And overcast is known to be the perfect lighting scenarios for outdoor daytime film shots, photography. Even in certain rainy days, overcast is so perfect because it brings a lot of the colors of whatever you're shooting out, makes it more vibrant. The shadows are softer, meaning you can focus on the subject even better, etc., etc. So overcast, it's perfect. Okay, now let's talk about indoor lights and different types, I guess. So there's really just three. There's incandescents, the warmer types. There's the fluorescents, which are colder types. And then there's LEDs, which are pretty cool because they can be really intense and have any color tint. And they're very cyberpunky, right? Think about cyberpunk. Think about like clubs, things like that. So here we go. So typically, anyway, the indoor lightings that you do end up seeing, like in movies and stuff like that, they give a lot of like mood to the shots. So they make a lot of like smaller light sources and they pepper them everywhere, and they change the intensities. They vary the intensity. So you can see here in both shots, there's some smaller lights, there's some larger lights, different colors, different strengths. Okay. And it gives interest, and one of the things too that makes indoor lighting like this so cool is something called indirect lighting, meaning you don't really know where that light source is coming from. However, it's beaming on a surface. For example, you can see up here in the example to the bottom right, there's some lights that's coming off of the edge. Maybe that light is hidden like in a corner, like let's say above this lip, there's like a lip up here that the light is nested in, and then it's giving off this kind of glow at the top there, and it's pretty cool. There's these like smaller point lights at the ceiling that's pointing down, creating these like circle spots on the floor. So stuff like this. So again, smaller lights peppered everywhere, indirectional, and different intensities or different strengths. Now, something like this would be like a hotel. Why? It's clearly, first of all, the shot looks like a hotel. Second, there's lots of lights. If you see hotels, they all kind of carry the same lighting theme, and that is lights everywhere. Turn them all on, okay? And there has to be enough lights to be able to see every corner of the room. And it makes you feel cozy because it's not like we got a natural looking light setup, not too cool, not too warm either, so you're not too sleepy, but it's presentable, right? So this, like, you'd walk in, you're like, wow, that's a very clean looking lobby or whatever. Okay. Same thing when it comes to their rooms. Again, more lights, cover as much space as possible. Again, varying size lights and stuff. But again, more important, it's natural colored, and there's a lot of lights everywhere. Now, something like this, very industrial looking. If you see this immediately, you're like, oh, that's a warehouse or that's some kind of like production company or something. Why? Big fluorescent lights. It's a daylight to keep everybody awake. Okay. Usually it's all coming from the ceiling for some weird reason. They don't like to put other light sources aside from the top source, like grocery stores. You wouldn't see a lamp in a grocery store. If you saw a lamp in a grocery store, you'd be like, what is this doing here? It's really strange because you grew up with the lights all coming from the ceiling to see all the products, right, in every aisle. Excuse me. Now this is a showroom. Very interesting too. If you notice, if you've ever been to an open house, what they would do, literally in an open house, they open everything. They open the door, they open the windows, they open all the lights, they show off the house, right? But in reality, my house is like doesn't have all the windows open. Usually we close all the curtains and turn some lights off in order for us to save energy. But something like this would be like perfect to showcase a room, an open house, a house that's most likely for sale, to show off its features and stuff like that. So this is the kind of thing that you're probably gonna see in like an image for like a house listing, right? You'll see both outdoor light sources and indoor light sources together, and mostly it's daytime when they're taking pictures of this stuff, because natural light, really, like, you can't beat it. Something like this, again, cold, okay, office feeling, again, lights coming from above, fluorescents, and possibly spotlights as well. Lots of white or cold colors to mimic that like serious office look. And last but not least, like the underground parking lighting scenario, a basement or something like this. If you want it to feel eerie, like just put one light source and like have that light source bloom, okay, like what you've got here on the right, okay, have it bloom, and then leave some shadow, in some of the corners of that room to make it look kind of eerie, and then like apply like muddy textures everywhere. It just looks, yeah. Same goes with like the parking lot lights too, just all of them coming from above. If you saw a lamp in the parkade, you'd be like, what is this doing here? It's so strange. Yeah, they're all usually coming from sort of like the above, like on the ceiling of the parkade. And then there's like the mix of both, right? You can get really creative with this stuff, but outdoor light and then indoor as well with the incandescents. It's really cool. If you pepper something like this, it looks really like high class, look like a date night or something like this. Really cool. And then fluorescents, LEDs, nightclubs, think about gaming, think about, any, I don't know, futuristic looking setup, a lounge, whatever it may be. Right? So, why we're discussing this stuff is because of, color keys and temperatures, mood. We're talking about, scenarios and We're talking about like how, what are you trying to capture in your shot. And just based on like all the examples that we were looking at here, it gives you a certain feeling, right? It gives you a certain kind of look. And based on that look that you want to go for, you create those lights. Temperature, you mess with the temperature, you mess with maybe the color of the light, what light sources there are, where they're coming from, all this stuff. So, be mindful of these light setups. When you're watching a movie, figure out like, oh, why did they light it like that in Mad Max? Or what made that, let's just say, that love scene so romantic or horrifying? I don't know. What made that shot look very welcoming and comfortable? And a lot of the reasons or a lot of the products of lighting give you that kind of effect, right? Like, oh, how come that shot looks kind of eerie? Is it because of the angle of the camera? Is it because of the lack of light, right? So remember that lighting is not necessarily just the amount of lights you can pepper, but also the light count, and also the absence of light gives you like a certain effect as well. Where you place that light, how intense that light is, what it's doing based on the overall kind of dynamic of the shot, right? So lighting, very important in cinematography, and even establishing shots like color keys, stuff like that. Color palettes also matter when it comes to this stuff, because then it plays with, again, the mood of the shots. Okay, so these are the light types that we talked about earlier: area, directional point, spot, mesh, and HDR. So you guys saw me show you earlier those examples. Okay. Any questions so far regarding lights and what we talked about there? So I'm gonna leave this slide on just for a second, because this is something that, take a screenshot if you have to, but this is something to think about when you are lighting your assignment, your scene. Okay, and the assignment will be to light an interior scene. I'm gonna give you a simple room, and you're gonna go ahead and create lights, and then you're gonna showcase some of the methods that you probably have learned. I literally showed you how to create a light, turn that light on by increasing the exposure, or turn down the strength. Okay, and then you can place it, move it around, right? And then see what you could do when it comes to the lighting. You can use any 3D outdoor scenes, okay, and you can obviously, you should also apply an AI standard surface material on the elements that you're going to be lighting. Or maybe you can apply certain colors and stuff like that on certain objects in the scene, so you can have a little bit more, you can go to the feel, go to the mood or theme or something like that. You can go closer to that theme or goal or mood that you're trying to go for when it comes to your light setup. Go nuts, apparently it says there. But I have this slide here for you guys to have a look. Remember, these are the things to remember when you're building your scene up. Okay, is it a directional light or indirect light? Directional light meaning you know exactly where it's coming from, or indirect meaning you don't know where it's coming from, but it's clearly showing the light direction, the light rays, shadow, etc. Is it a soft light or a hard light? Does it have a hard shadow or soft shadow? How large or small is that light? Is it like a sunlight, or is it a small candlelight source? What is the type? Talked about large or small type, the temperature, the strength, and the fall off of that light, if there's a fall off. Okay, so these are the things to think about when you're creating your lights. Okay, so I'm going to show you some examples in in the assets folder there that I sent everybody. So in the assets folder here, you're gonna see some references. And what I'd like to do, sorry, what I'd like you guys to do is I'd like you to have a look at these references first. Okay. Pick one that that interests you. Okay. Maybe this interests you. I don't know. So we have like a dank kind of basement or kind of like used room or something. We have a naturally lit room, and there's no indoor lights that's turned on here, but it's just surrounded with natural light. Okay. We have both indoor and outdoor lighting in this one, and you've got multiple indoor lights set up. Any dark or dim lit creepy basements. Yeah, there's one right here. But yeah, you could refer to the one that we were talking about there in the slide. Here's a gaming room. Okay, just full of like LEDs and RGB lights. Here's one that's kind of a little bit eerie, right? Natural light source. You know, one light source. You know, and maybe some fill light somewhere. Here's it looks like a correctional facility or like some kind of prison or something like this, or like a sterile looking facility. Here's one that's a bit more rustic, very cozy looking. You know, got candles at the top. Etc. Got a fireplace and like a lamp on the side there. Here's a classic, I would say like a modern house today. Again, little lights everywhere. And you know, trying to cover as much of the dark spaces as possible. Here's another one. This is probably a perfect example of indirect, and back here as well. Like, we don't really know what light source that is. All we know is the room is kind of foggy, kind of smoky. There's a woman there, you know, probably she just got off work or whatever. And you have a blue light source here, probably like an outdoor light, and then you have a like a daylight source here on the left hand screen for maybe like a washroom light or something like this. So we don't know exactly what these light sources are. All we know is that they're blue and, you know, they're natural, they're day colored. And we don't know where they're coming from exactly, but they look like big light sources. So that would be an example of indirect light. And then you have a hotel room. Again, natural looking light. Excuse me, lights everywhere. Yeah, clean looking. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and pick from the list. And keep in mind about the things that we talked about there. Is it direct light or indirect light? Meaning direct, like, can you see it with your eye where that light source is coming from? Or you can't see where that light source is coming from, but you can see its effects. Soft light, is it like a nice, soft-looking light? Quite, whatchamacallit, there's not a lot of shadow? Or is it a hard light? Is it a directional hard light? It's got hard shadows. How large is the light source? Is it a small light source? What kind of light source is it? Its Kelvin temperature, its strength, and its fall off. Before we sign you off here, and before we open the scene, so I'd like you guys to go and download that that scene. I guess it's called a simpleroom.ma in the assets folder. So let's go ahead and frame it here. So right here, it's called simpleroom.ma. You can just go ahead and download that. Okay. So let's go to our Maya here. You'll see a lot of these objects. They're just kind of like random. It's just called simple room, and I just named them whatever. There's a few things that you could do, and I'm gonna give you like the ideas here in this simple room ideas document. You can take a look at that. Now what I'd like you to do is to create a minimum of 3 light sources. You can make one really big one, or like one main one if you want to make a like creepy basement. Like make one main one, and then add like 2 or 3 dim light sources, like a blue foreground color one, like, or one indirect one from the back or something like this, and maybe like a few spotlights like in the corners or something like that. But anyway, create a minimum of 3 light sources. You can create more, you guys. And what you want to do is you want to hide, like, shadows isn't quite black, you know, like you want to add a little bit more light in that area, but still giving that same feeling, that like, let's just say creepy feeling in the basement or something like that. Remember, you can create or make any light source you like. That's why it's so beautiful. Like 3D is so beautiful because you can do anything you want. Okay, so be creative. You can remodel or create furniture. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can just be like, if you want to make a lamp, make a quick lamp. Like, it'll take like 5 minutes, not even. You can remove furniture, add temperature, add furniture, etc. Apply different shaders, apply different colors, different metalness, roughness, etc. Whatever you want to play with, just based on what you learned last week. And then achieve a theme, like a feel, a look, right, for the final render. And then when we get back from break, what we're going to do is, of course, give you guys an idea of how to, light a scene, like so. And then I'm gonna give you some tips and tricks or whatever regarding the lighting of the simple room. But for now, what's important is that you take a look at the references, and you can gather, obviously, your own references. And if you are thinking about a theme, like, say, a rustic theme, let's just say, get 2 or 3 examples of what your light sources could look like, how big they are, what they are, and anything else, any other information that you'd like to go for. And then we're going to go ahead and light the scene. So yeah, like, download the simple room assets, and then just open it up. Yeah, so open it up, and then, yeah. And take a look. So was there any questions regarding the lighting slideshow that we talked about? Or anything like that? Anybody confused about anything? So is everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys got the link. You guys got that. Okay, perfect. So what we'll do is we'll take a, I guess, slightly early break, not really, and then we'll be back at 8. So yeah, so download the simple room. Look at the references that's in the assets or course materials folder, and pick a light scenario or light situation that you like. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna light that simple room based on that lighting situation that you really like. Okay. Remember, you could make furniture, create, and move this stuff around if you want. Yeah, be creative, man. And let's see how you guys do. Sounds like fun. Yeah, man, it's pretty fun. Okay, so I guess since nobody's talking and nobody has any questions, we'll be back at 8. And we'll see you guys then. And of course, shoot me a question or DM me if you do have a question.
Sounds good.
Awesome. to our work screen. Alrighty. If you'd like to jump in at any time, you can do that. And also feel free to look back at the recording if you did miss some things. But this is kind of like where we left off here. Simple room. And I can go ahead and just put some of these items in here. Like, this is just the room itself. Like, remember, you could make new arrangements with this stuff. You don't have to leave it like as is. You could kind of move things around, stuff like that. So anyway, up to you. What I'm gonna do here will be, let's see. Let's look at our references. I think I'm gonna go for that comfortable, like, homey kind of look. So I'm using something called PureRef, and PureRef allows me to drop any images on this floating window. So, for example, if I was to take a screenshot or something like that from my other monitor, and I drop it in here, I just paste it in here. I can unlock the canvas. It usually comes in locked, so you can't really paste anything on there, so you have to unlock it first. Anyway, you could download this PureRef by going to pureref.com. And then going to download this, when you fire it up, it looks like this. First, you have to unlock the canvas. Right-click, and then go to canvas, and then select this. Lock canvas. Again, right-click, canvas, lock canvas. So it's now unlocked. Remember, the shortcut is Control-R. And then I'm going to paste the image here, Control-V. And then I could scroll out using my scroll wheel, obviously. Move this around by left-clicking on it. And you could lock it again, Control-R. So then you could lock the, canvas. But anyway, it's just a floating canvas. And yeah, you should check it out. It's in pureref.com. Pureref.com. I can just paste it there on the chat, and you could download that and have a look. But that's something that I've been using. I'm gonna be using in this example. Okay, like we need like there's a few light sources. Of course, you're going to judge based on what's going on here, but a lot of it is like natural lighting, like indoor natural lighting, and then also outdoor natural lighting. So I'm gonna go to Polyhaven, and I'm gonna go see what is going on there. Maybe we can find an HDR that's closely matched to what we are trying to make. Polyhaven. So I'm gonna just show you guys what I'm doing here. So let's browse. Let's go look for something kind of like that, kind of like a neighborhood. Oh yeah, studio garden. Something like that would be perfect. Let's see. Keep looking. Let's do outdoor. Yeah, I like that studio garden, actually. We might just end up with that one. Oh, this is pretty nice. Chinese garden. I want something green and bright. I don't want what's going on. I don't want anything overcast. I want something kind of like this. So let's go ahead and download this one. When you're downloading stuff from Polyhaven, 2K should be sufficient. You don't need anything bigger than this. 2K would be minimum, and then EXR or HDR would work. Anyway, I'm gonna just download the EXR. I'm gonna go ahead and download that. Save that in my downloads. So it's called Chinese Garden 2K. Okay, just close that. We don't really need that anymore. Okay, first things first, let's go ahead and make a light. So a light, in this case, let's start off with the HDRI. Go to Arnold Lights Skydome. Arnold Lights Skydome. You know, you can actually make the Skydome a little bit bigger. You know, you could scale it up, move it up, stuff like this. So I'm just gonna kind of move it up like this. And then probably make it a little bit bigger. Get it to encompass my set a little bit better. Okay, okay, so let's go ahead and attach the HDR map to this. So select your AS Skydome light. And again, go to the attributes, Control A, and then find the color swatch. You know, if you don't actually attach a color on the HDRI color swatch here, or the color node, it's basically kind of useless. So I highly suggest to always attach an EXR or some kind of EXR HDRI file. Even a JPEG would be better than a white background. So let's go ahead and choose that Chinese Garden 2K. Okay, make sure that it's raw. Okay, looking pretty good. I like it so far. Yep. Okay. Now we change this exposure later, probably. Maybe one of these windows are open. Let's go ahead and hide the blinds. Okay. Just so all this is not really grouped proper, so gonna go ahead and open it up a little bit like that. Okay, let's create a camera. To create a camera, you want to go to Create, Camera, and then Camera. So Create, Menu, make sure you're in the Modeling menu, Sets, and then you go Create, Camera, and then just first one, Camera. We're gonna call this one Beauty Cam. Okay, and then let's go to our Windows panels, look through selected, or go to perspective beauty cam. Perspective beauty cam. Awesome. Okay, let's turn on something called a resolution gate. A resolution gate is this. If you turn on your resolution gate, that'll show you the border of the render. So essentially, if you're trying to frame the shot, this is what it'll look like exactly. Okay, so currently we're at using a render preset of 1080, 1920 by 1080. Remember, you can change that in the render settings. Okay, again, that's right here, render settings. Just the clapper with the gear icon at the bottom right. And then you can change the preset from HD 1080 to like 720 for now. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and frame it like so. Okay. And then let's go to our Arnold, open Arnold render view. And we want to go ahead and render this sucker. See what it looks like. Oh, oops. Now you can see We have our light direction going this way. So what we probably would want to do here is rotate the HDR. Okay, so the light direction would come from this angle. Because what we've got here in the reference is, yeah, it's coming in, but it's like pretty soft. So kind of overcasty. Let's angle it a little bit, kind of like that. Okay. So now it looks kind of like this. It's kind of strange because there's like a statue like next door. So let me just change the angle a little bit so then you don't actually see that statue head. There you go. Looks a little bit better. Now I probably want to pump the exposure here a little bit. It's feeling a little bit weak for me. Because we could light the set a little bit better by probably increasing our exposure. Let's set it up to 1 and then see what that looks like. Right, so you see how it's going from... Let me show you here. So it's going from that dark. Okay. Let's increase our threads to 2. So it's going from this dark. Okay, so I'm going to take a snapshot of that and then show you. So I took a snapshot of that. Okay, so that's it with the exposure at 0. And let's pump it up to exposure of 1. So you can see like huge change right away. Like there's like bounce everywhere. A little bit brighter inside, right? So it's going from that to that. Look, stark difference. And as well as you're getting some hot spots here, which is good. Probably push that just a little bit more, but probably no more than just a tiny bit. But yeah, something like this. And then we're gonna use the rest of the lights here to illuminate our scene. Okay, so that's our key light there. Okay, so that's our HDR outside lights. I'll show you something here, you guys. I can actually change the color a little bit. The color temperature will allow me to change the color of the light a little bit. So I want it to be a little bit more warmer. So it's like really blue at the moment. Maybe I could change that just turning on this use color temperature checkbox. Go ahead and turn that on. Okay. Okay, so let's make this a little bit warmer. Remember, like about 4,500. Excuse me. Maybe 1.1 in exposure. I don't know if that necessarily made a difference though, but hopefully we can have a cooler outside light. Let's increase our samples. So I wonder if that made a difference, if it made it a little bit more orange. And let's do a comparison. Let's do a snapshot comparison again. So that's at 1.1 exposure and 0. So this is 0 exposure, 1.1. So this is why snapshots are so important, because you get to compare, versions. Okay, so that's cool. Now what I'm gonna do here quick, since we have this kind of like lamp stand up here, I'm just gonna quickly make something. So let's go ahead and create like a torus or something. Okay. Make it big like this. A radius of say 3. You know what? 2 is fine. Change this to 32. Maybe 16 subdivs. Yeah. 0.1 radius. And let's just kind of move it here-ish. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hide these ball lights, whatever. It just depends on what I'm making, to be honest, you guys. Let's go ahead and hide that. Make sure it's just like right above the table here. Okay, there you go. And then we could just make a bunch of cylinders. Create cylinder. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go in our top view. Okay, let's make 1, 2. Just do 4. Maybe 4 should be enough. Okay, and then we'll raise it up. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, to be honest. Okay, and we put our light sources here. So let's create. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create these omnidirectional lights. We're gonna use a. What do you think we're gonna use? Point light. Okay. Let's take that point light. Okay, and then move it to the center of said candle. Move it up like that. Okay. And let's go to our attribute editor, Control A. Let's go to our Arnold tab, and then let's increase our exposure. Let's just say, let's start with 5 for now. And let's render. See what this looks like. Looks like 5's not really doing anything. So let's try 12. Okay. Looks like it's not happening as well. So maybe 18. Whoa. Okay. It's a little bright. Okay, so you can see it's like casting. It's casting. Okay, it's casting onto the other candles. And let's set this to about 3200 temperature. Because we kind of want to do warm. Maybe 13. Okay, it's a bit too warm, so maybe 4000 might be good for this kind of light situation. 4200 maybe with a 14 exposure, get a little to become a little bit brighter. Needs to be warmer. I don't know what though. Uh, okay, so let's just multiply that by 4. It seems like that's a decent value. Let's see. So it's about there. So we're just duplicating this a few times. So it's just sitting right above those candle-looking things, I guess. Yeah, looks about right. It's not orange enough though. I think they all could be orange more orangey. Maybe 3500. Let's see. Let's do 3500 on all of these. Copy paste. Just gonna paste it. And then render. Yeah, that looks better. Let's set the exposures on all these at 13.5. Yeah, like I can't make up my mind. Like I want it to be natural light, but I want it to be more orangey. You know what? Last final decision. 4500 temperature. And we're moving on. That's fine. Okay. Now let's assign some shaders to like the walls and stuff like this, the ceiling maybe. So the ceiling will be like that red. So select the object, hold right click, assign favorite material. I assigned the AI standard surface as my favorite material. And maybe we could just color sample off of like this kind of brown oak color. And let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's good. Let's make these kind of like this ochre wall. Let's not make it any shinier because it seems pretty shiny. You know what? I'm gonna brighten that a little bit. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, our floor here and the wall. You know what? I'm gonna separate the floor from the wall, so I'm just gonna select that. Hold Shift, hold right click, and then extract face. And then assign a different material to this wall. Just gonna color sample. Something like that. Make it bright. You know, kind of like this. Okay, let's remove the shininess off of the wall here. And as the ceiling, maybe. The floor, it could be shiny. So let's try 0.1 for the floor. Yeah, that's kind of nice. Yeah, I mean, it's starting to look kind of cozy, right? Okay. Let's see here. Now let's add some, like, maybe some indirect lights into the scene. Maybe a light coming from that doorway or whatever. Now, to achieve that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my perspective view first. And I'm going to create a AI area light. And then I'm going to make it big. This. So I scaled it up. And I'm going to move it here. Now, if you observe here, the AI area light has this line that's sticking out from one of the planes. That's the light direction. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it here. And point it that way for now. And let's see what that looks like. So I'm gonna angle it and then put it like that, and then I'm gonna make it kind of big, kind of like that. Okay, kind of like that. And I'm gonna use a warm temperature, probably 4,000 again, with the exposure of 12. Sorry, guys. See if that makes any difference. Okay, so I do have to face it the other way. So let's get out of here. I'm gonna get it to face this way. I'm gonna get that light to face that way. Okay. Boom. So you can see, like, it became like way brighter. Too bright. I just need it to be. I just need it to be like a subtle light. there's a weird thing with the Arnold renderer that if you don't have the main camera that you want to render in view in your viewport, it'll update like all weird in the Arnold render view. So like I highly suggest to every time before you render that you choose the right camera and view from the right camera. So slowly getting brighter. So maybe 15. You can see there, like that side there totally like lit up. But I think it's too close. I might have to like do this and then move it all the way back here. And do that. See what that looks like. Set that exposure up even more by 20 maybe. Okay, that's a bit too much. Let's go slowly. 16. There'll be like a point here that it will be pretty bright. I'm gonna change the angle here a little bit. Yeah, you can use any texture, whatever you want, Darcy. You can use to your creativity, anything you'd like. But yeah, of course, keep in mind that that there is metalness and roughness in those values in the shader that you're using. You're welcome. Okay, now one of the questions that I get constantly is like can I use this screen as a means of creating a light? The answer is yes. And that's the TV screen I'm referring to. So the best way to do this is this. There's two ways. Well, there's sort of two levels to it. First one is create a something on the screen, like a visual reference, kind of like a fireplace. I'm gonna do fireplace this time around. I'm just take a snapshot of like a fireplace. Yeah, there you go. Let me just copy image. Yeah, something like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a light source, and then I'm going to create a texture. So there's two ways to extract like the screen faces. You can either use the grow select, or you could just manually make a plane, like polygon plane, and just like put it right on top of this, kind of like rotate it 90 degrees, stuff like that. All those specs. There's a couple ways. Number one is increasing the render samples. which you can do. And I'm going to show you how to do that here. So to increase your render samples, remember, you don't really care so much about the the speckles for now. But if you want to increase your render samples, you can go to your render settings. Again, that's the clapper with the gear icon at the bottom right. And then go from the common tab to the Arnold renderer tab. And there should be two areas that you care about. The sampling drop down and the ray depth drop down. So again, ray depth drop down and sampling drop down. You want to pump the camera AA to 4 or 5, okay, and also increasing your diffuse and specular as well. The default ray depth should be 12, and the diffuse and specular samples could be 2 of each. And then from here, you can try to render with that. Another thing that will help you remove those fireflies, they call them fireflies, those little specks, those little noise things that you see on the render, is if you select your camera, your lights, any lights, okay, and if you go to its attributes, there should be a sample feature, okay? So for example, if I selected the AI area light, in the attributes of that AI area light, there is a sample section. They all should be set at 1. If you doubled them to 2, you can also get a better render with that, without, of course, slowing down your render. Yeah, you're welcome. So I'm gonna call this one Light Geo. And then I'm going to call this one, I'm going to make a duplicate and then call this one Texture Geo. And I'm going to put the Light Geo just a little bit above the Texture Geo. And I'm going to take the Texture Geo and just kind of get it to pop out like so. And what I'm going to do with this Texture Geo is I'm going to assign a material to this. I'm going to call this material Fireplace SHDR. And then I will hook up the color that I've been talking about there that I got from the internet on here, on this node. So just like how we've connected our HDRI map, I'm going to connect a file on there. And then I'm going to look for that file, okay, in my... obviously Windows. I think it's called MaxRes, yeah. And my color space should be set to sRGB just by default. If you don't have the sRGB set up or color space, choose that. And that'll be good. So in my texture preview now, you should be able to see a fireplace. Okay, now the light geo, I'm going to select the light geo, the duplicate, and then I'm going to go to Arnold lights and then turn that into a mesh light. And I'm going to use color temperature and then set this to like 3200 with 2 color samples. Okay, let's look at how we can tweak this, and let's just render that and see what happens. So my light has no exposure, so that's why it's not doing anything there. But let's set that to 12. Okay, a little bit intense with 15. I think let's try 13 here. See, how hot should we go? Like 2200? Like that's pretty hot. Exposure of 14. So you can see here, like the image there is like popping up. Obviously more fireflies this time. Higher resolution render. Okay. Now I'm gonna go back to my texture geo. And I'm gonna go to the fireplace SHDR. This time, I'm gonna hook up that same picture on the emission dropdown. Now, what emission will do is it'll look like, it's like glowing. Okay, so if I increase the emission, kind of like that, and then I render that, okay, it'll look like that. Okay, but the reason why it looks kind of milky like that or murky is because we have the color white on here. However, if we hook up the map, the file, the same file map that we've been that we used earlier as our diffuse. Okay, boom. And then there's light that gives off of the screen. So let's go back to our shot now. I think the shot was something like this. So let's go ahead and render that. And boom, there you go. Okay. Now, if it helps you out, one of the techniques that I like to use is to just turn off some of the lights. Like sometimes the lights can be burdensome because when you hit render, it'll render all the lights that's currently in the scene. However, you can save CPU power by isolating the lights, meaning hide certain ones that you're not working on anymore, like the HDRI, and then just work on the levels of each of the other lights individually. And then later on, when you're ready to adjust all of them together, then you can go ahead and turn all of them on again, right? And then go ahead with the render. Okay, so far so good. What I would like to do is maybe add some indirect lights. Like the ones that you see here by the fireplace. Maybe something like that. Maybe add a single light right here. Then maybe add like a little bit of fog too. We'll see. Okay. Anyway, let's go here and then let's create a area lights. Arnold lights, AI area light. Okay, scale that up a little bit. I'm gonna put it right here. They'll look like puck lights. So I'm gonna render that. So set that exposure to 10 just by default. Okay. Let's use our color temperature. Let's go with like 5500. Natural light color. And then let's increase the samples to 2. I'm going to go ahead and hide my sky dome for now. And also my point lights. Okay, I don't want those anymore for now anyway. And now I'm gonna name my light puck light. Puck light 1. Okay, let's see what that looks like in our render. I need it to be kind of like a beam of light, you know? So there it is. Do I want like that? Maybe I want to go something stronger. Kind of like this. Now, I want the lights to be a bit more narrow, kind of like the cone. Remember the cone light or the, spotlights? To change that cone angle. So, because currently the light is 180 degrees, because if it's a square light, then light is emitting, at a 180 degree angle. What I could do is add a cone so I can narrow down that angle so it'll look like it's a beam of light. To do that, what I want to do is I want to take the spread value of this AI area light that I named puck light, take that spread value, and then reduce that by half. So let's say 0.5, and then render that out. So you see how it went to like something pretty wide to something narrower? So let's try 0.2. Boom. So you can see that made a huge difference there. It's a little bit much though. So maybe 0.35. Do I want it at 5500? Yes. Do I want higher exposure? No, I think we want to go 11. Go low. You know what? 12.5. So I'm trying to go as intense as the one that's there in the maybe 4500. Try to go with something I can go with a disc shape this time with the AI area. Okay, let's just say that. I kind of like that level of intensity. So let's go back to our perspective, and then let's take this disk light, this disk AI area light, and duplicate it, Control D, and then move that right here. Also, let's duplicate it one more time, and let's bring it up. Yeah, okay. So there and here. I duplicated that like 4 times. Okay. Hit escape. I'm just gonna maybe hide these. I probably don't want those shelves. I'm gonna hide those shelves. There you go. That looks a little bit better. Something like that. Okay. Let's unhide everything. Okay, maybe I can add a couple of the shelves back. Feel like bringing them back. I'm gonna hide that there. Or let's do one. So there's a little bit of a stopper there. One is so weird. I'm gonna angle these two towards the wall a little bit more. And increase intensities. Make it a little bit stronger. Just 13 or something. And let's add that second shelf. So remember, these are the things that you could do. You could just like change the intensity, move the lights around, stuff like this. Maybe I could add that reading light. Yeah, maybe I can add that reading light to the scene. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the reading light. Go to Arnold, lights, AI area light. Make that big too, so move it here. So I'm just gonna put it just underneath there. Set that to negative 90 degrees on rotation. Just change the shape a little bit here. It doesn't have to be perfect since it is gonna be just on here like that. And exposure of 8 for now. Let's try. Oh, I am on my beauty cam. Okay. I'll call this one reading lamp, reading lights. So let's try to hide all this other stuff here. Indirect hallway light. Okay, we don't really need that right now. Like this itself looks pretty cool, but I think that level is good. So let's turn that into like an incandescent. Okay. I'm gonna dim that hallway light there. Set it back to like 14. Ugh, that's so low. Maybe 15.5. Sorry. Okay. I'm gonna give the chairs some textures. You know, make it into like a. I'll call this one couch. Like a really nice maroon one, very similar to what we've got here in the screen. .4. Let's try that 0.4 value for roughness. It's a bit dark. By the way, you could actually go to the Arnold render view and then try to select an object in there And you can do that. You can certainly change the color. Okay, there it is. Let's make it a little bit brighter. Brighter, more saturated. Let's see here. It should pop now. There we go. Let's make that table have like a stone. Like a stone texture to this table. So very rough. I think I'm still rendering here. Okay. Table, HDR. Like a dark stone table. Okay. So let's just say like I like everything. Hang on a second. I'm gonna assign a wall material to these two. So I'm gonna call this one wallpaper. By the way, I haven't really told anyone this yet, but every time you're naming your shaders, make sure you're naming the shader and giving an extension to SHDR, and then going into the shading engine or the shading group and naming that too. So what do I mean by that? I want to go to the hypershade, and to go to the hypershade, you want to go to Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. Okay, so right there. Or you can click this circular shader ball looking icon. So I cleared all of my other windows. So that's why you see it's very kind of like minimalist. I just have my node editor graph thing in the middle here. And then I have my other materials in here. Now to graph or to show what shaders are assigned to what object, because currently we've just been selecting, holding right click, selecting the material. What if we want to edit the material in the node graph? Now to edit that, you want to select the material, or sorry, the object that has the material, and then selecting this icon or this button here, says graph material on selected objects, and you can get it that way. The other way is to find the name of the shader, i.e. wallpaper shader, right here. Select that here in the browser. Select that, and then click this input and output connections. Okay, so now we have it again. So what I'm saying is that when you're looking at the shader, okay, of the object, or just a regular shader, it's not assigned to an object yet. You want to name the shader and this blue node. This blue node is what will speak to the lights, and that's how you're gonna get a render in your Arnold render view. So it's just a matter of selecting the name of the wallpaper, SHDR, Control A to copy to select everything, Control C, and then selecting the name AI Standard Surface SG, this one. Okay, selecting all of that, pasting this, and then changing the extension of this SHDR to SG, like that. So you have your wallpaper shader, indicating wallpaper shader, this node right here, connected to this shading group, or shading engine SE, okay, connect to this. That speaks to the lights in the scene. Therefore, you're gonna get color, whatever else shader property that you turned on. So get used to naming the shader and the shading group or shading engine. Okay. Anyway, so that's named. We're going to go ahead and close that. You can just select this wall right here, hold right click, and then assign existing material and find wallpaper. And same thing with this too. Let's go find wallpaper. Awesome. And then let's do a render. Okay, feeling cozy. Okay, so let's just say like, okay, you're happy with the lighting or whatever, and you want to just go for it, you know? You know what? I'm gonna turn down these puck lights. They're really distracting. So, maybe just change each one of them to 10. Change all the strength to 10 for all the puck lights. Oh, now they disappear. So maybe it's just 11.5. I'm just going to copy paste the value. Okay. That's fine. Okay. Ta-da. So you can see here, watch. I'm going to take the intensity and then making that into 2. You'll see that light 1 right here will double its intensity. Okay, so it's currently intensity number 1 earlier. Okay, and then this is the part where you like fine tune. Okay, and you're like, okay, I kind of want that intensity to be 2 or maybe even 3. Okay, and then I'm just stepping up one at a time once I have a level that I really like. Okay, so let's just say I like these ones to be even brighter, just like the ones here that I've got in the reference. So that's how I'm going to go ahead and blow that up. Okay, so using the intensity. But remember, use that sparingly. That's not something that you just go ahead and increase because you want to. Leave it at 1, change the exposure till you're happy at the level that you like it, and then increase the intensity. They kind of work hand in hand. Okay. Now, when you're ready, we're going to increase our samples. Okay. You know what? Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to make volumetric fog. It's pretty easy. If you want fog in your scene, I'm going to show you how to make it right now. So go to your render view. Okay, or sorry, render settings. Let's see. Let me see if I still remember how to make it. Yeah. So go to render settings and then go to environment. And then once you go to the environment, you want to go ahead and select this empty node right here. And what you want to do is you want to create an AI fog. Okay. After you create an AI fog, okay, under the Arnold tab, and then environment drop down, atmosphere, AI fog, you want to change from color to fractal. Let's find the fractal. So let's connect our node there and then find fractal. Okay, so that seems like it's okay. And then let's go and render that out. And you'll see, boom, just fog everywhere. We need to encompass the whole thing. Let's set 1 to everything here. See what that looks like. Okay. Now it's a little ridiculous because it's really dense. I forgot what this does. I'm gonna try to see what happens. Hang on a second. I'm gonna break this AI fog. Second thought. Let's go ahead and disconnect that. Let's create like an AI atmospheric volume. Oh. Okay. Oh my goodness, really dense. Everything's glowing. Okay. Let's take the color down a little bit. Okay, we just need a little bit. Tiny, 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 tiny. And that's already at 0.001. Looks like somebody's been smoking. Let's make it even smaller. I wonder if we can make it even smaller. Oh, nope. That's the smallest. You just have to take that light down, I think. Okay, so let's just say you like that. Okay. Let's pump our samples to ray depth of 12 or 13, but 12 is fine. And diffuse of 3, specular 3, diffuse 3, specular 3. If you want to change the volume indirect, you can change that to 3 as well because we have fog. And then we're going to go to our common. Let's change HD to HD 1080 for the presets. Okay. Let's hide our snapshot for now. And let's go ahead and do a full render scene. And then you'll see that it's going to go and try to render everything at like best resolution. Like it's taking much longer now. You see bottom right, it's showing 7%. For at this point, it would already be at like 60 or something. So increasing the samples isn't necessarily the best idea, to be honest. But when you are ready, and You've made up your mind when it comes to all the values and stuff. You got all of your settings correct. Then that's when you pump up your resolution. Now this will take a little bit of time to render. This is like the perfect time to insert like sponsorships and segues. Insert jokes here. You guys follow me on ArtStation if you guys have ArtStation. Or follow me on Pinterest. If any of you guys are gonna get into like character modeling or or any modeling or texturing, now's the time to like go through ArtStation and just look for a bunch of cool renders and cool models that you could model and texture and concept and whatever else you have to do. It's never too early to do that kind of thing. So you can see like the fireflies are so much smaller now. Now there's another method of really getting rid of all the noise, and that's the denoise feature. It's not necessarily on everyone's machine. You might have a graphics card that is not NVIDIA, and you might have difficulties with the denoise, but I can show you where the denoise feature is later. The denoise will only apply after your render, and if you already rendered, you'd have to render again to apply that denoise. It's not like a fix-all type thing, because you'll see like that if you mess around with the denoise enough, it looks good when there's movement, but if it's static, sometimes the denoise looks like there's pixel bleeding, and pixel bleeding is not really cool because it just makes your image less crisp. So for the final renders and stuff, I expect you guys to give me 2 renders or 3 renders. Again, that's 2 or 3 renders, and I want to see kind of everything at like full blown, you know. If it's gotta take you to render the 1 frame for 10-15 minutes, that's okay. But yeah, I want to see your renders in, you know, clean at 1080p. You know, let it render, like, you know, then walk away, go get some food or drink coffee or something. Take a nap. No, something. But yeah, let your machine render at the best res the best you can anyway, based on what you're capable of doing.
Is
At
this
10
due next
a.m.
week?
Yes, it's due next week.
Okay, sounds good.
I can't wait for God of War Ragnarok, you guys. Exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. Now that the God of War came out on PC too, I'm like really tempted to go and play that. That's exciting stuff. Did Mohadese ever logged in here? Maybe it's just a mix up or attendance or something. So far, I don't know how long it's been, but probably 5 minutes now since this thing has been rendering. Also, a bunch of Halo Infinite concept art just came out of ArtStation, so that's really pretty cool to look at. You have the time to look at there. Anyone have any questions? By the way, if any of you guys have any questions, now would be the time. If you have any questions, now would be the time because the class is pretty quiet. I guess the whole class, and now would be the time. If you guys have any questions or anyone want to bring anything up regarding the class, now's the time. Yeah, because we could sign out early here. So if everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, then it's all good. But yeah, no problem, Evan. See you next week, dude.
I'd like to hear about the bee noise.
Who said that? B noise? What do you mean B noise? Oh, D noise. D noise. Ah, okay, okay. So, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop this now. I think they just finished. So this is kind of like the resolution I'm expecting you guys to render this at, like 1080p. Like the samples doesn't have to be at like where I had it. I had it at 5 camera AA and then ray depth of 12. So it can easily be like camera AA3, diffuse 2, spec 2, volume indirect 2, and then ray depth of 12, diffuse 2, spec 2. So everything should be like at 2 and then camera AA is 3, but at 1080p. So you can lower that quality just a little bit. But denoise lives right here, and that would be right here in the render settings again. This time, instead of the renderer tab, you're going to go to the AOVs tab. And then what you want to do is go to this Arnold denoiser and enable this output denoising AOVs. So if you go ahead and enable that, then go here to the Arnold, open Arnold render view. Actually, this is the first time I'm using it on 2022. We'll see what happens. I hope that it works, because if not, we're doomed. So let's go ahead and save that. So did we save it? We did. Okay. We'll save this one in our downloads. Make sure you save the snapshot with an extension. Cozy simple room.jpg. Alrighty. And so you enable your output denoising AOVs in your AOVs tab. And what you want to do is let's see here. Go to your view and make sure your enable AOVs are present. And then go to render an update full scene. Again, remember, enable AOVs need to be in there. So let's go ahead and update our full scene. And there should be an AOV, a beauty AOV. Wait a second. Denoise. No. Okay, 1 second. Let me just change the settings here, like pretty low. And render this whole thing. Don't save any threads. Camera. Yeah, so I have my AOVs. Okay, let me just render this whole thing, just a couple minutes. Should be really quick. I just allocated all my threads on the render. Because what should happen is it should try to render everything and then it'll apply a denoise filter after. But for some reason, it's not popping up here in my window view. So I'm trying to experiment how to turn that on in 2022. But you saw me so far. I turned on the output AOV's denoise feature there. So it's at 50%. Just hang on a second. Let's see. Maybe the help menu can also give us some assistance with this. Okay, so it's 93%. So you can see the difference, right? Like of the noise levels. So this was at higher camera AA, and this was the previous render, and then this is the current one right here. So you can see so much more speckles. I'm looking for the denoise feature. Sometimes my helps so dumb. No, it's not helpful. Hmm. Yeah, it's not working. What is going on? Yeah, so it seems like this one guy here who's having the problem of it not working either. I'll figure this out on next week, you guys. Seems like
I'm reading on Reddit right now. I'm not sure if this helps, but
Mhm.
it says optics is now an imager for 2022 under your Arnold rendering settings. All the way down on the drop down, you can see imagers, add imager, denoiser optics. It says make sure to keep the eyeball on.
For where was that drop down again?
All the way down on the drop down, under your Arnold rendering settings, it says you
Mhm.
can see imagers.
Mm.
And it
And
says add
then
image denoiser optics.
okay.
And then it says to keep the eyeball on. So I don't know if that does anything, but
It does. Let's see. Let's add both. Let's add the optics and the noise. Oh, interesting. Are there any hidden buttons here that we don't know? Okay. So, optics, AOV, output. Making sure that both of them are on. Score this. Okay, so let's. Okay, so it seems like it's right here. Good. Let's see if it'll give me a new. Ah, awesome. That's what it is. Thank you very much, Darcy. So view AOV. Okay, let's see what happens. So let's let this render for just a couple minutes here. Oh, finally, it's outpx or output file. See, it seems like Reddit does a better job in that whole answering that question because clearly the help doesn't work here in the my help. It's telling me the feature is there. It just doesn't tell me where to find the feature. Fantastic. Okay, so it's 50%. Just hang on a moment. Yeah, because where it used to live was it would just be on the AOVs tab before, but it's there in the Arnold renderer. I mean, it just makes so much more sense that it's in the Arnold renderer tab. It is an AOV, but oh yeah, by the way, AOV stands for arbitrary output variable, and it's just a fancy word of saying like what render this is. What are you rendering in this particular layer? Okay, so it's gonna do the render 100%. Come on, let's go. So you can see a comparison here before we sign out. I hope it works. We'll see. Okay, view AOVs. Noise. It's barely doing it. Okay, so I'm gonna flicker between the two, and then hopefully you could tell. Hopefully, let's see if you could tell in the samples here. So this is all the noise. Okay, so this is the beauty pass without the noise. This one with it. That's beauty. That's with it. You see how like it's kind of ruining the pixels here? Look here. That's with the noise. The denoise. What's this albedo noise? Right? So it does do something. It gets rid of like 80% or more, but it does preserve some. Like for example, this wall here. Right? It does clean it up a tiny bit, barely on this wall though. And of course, it'll work much better with higher quality, which I kind of hate saying. You can also strengthen that denoise if you would like. And I believe you can strengthen it here. You can mess around with the patch radius and the search radius and the variance. So try messing with that too. I'm going to mess with that too and then let you guys know more about it. But that's kind of how you denoise quick in Arnold. All right, everybody. I hope everybody knows what they want to do or what they need to do by next week.
Yep, should be good.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you for the class.
Thank you as well for helping with the AOEs. Awesome. All right. Well, have a good night, you guys. Thank you very much for being here and listening in. Guys, it's such a quiet class. It's like people are here, but they're not. Like, I don't know. It's so strange. There's like 2 people talking.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
You too.
You're welcome, Adam.